Hi, everybody. Thank you for being with me today. Sivan from The Vegan Woman here. I am totally honored to be interviewing a truly remarkable figure. Rabbi Shmuly Yanklowitz is not just an educator and an author, but he's also a vegan. And not just a vegan, he's also the founder of a Jewish vegan institute called Shamayim Va'aretz, an institute that doesn't only support the vegan lifestyle for Jewish people, but it also helps train and educate leaders within the Jewish community about veganism and the way it correlates to Jewish values. So thank you so much, Rabbi Shmuly, for being with us today.
Thank you.
So I'm going to jump right in, and my first question to you would be about something I've read and I thought was absolutely fascinating, and that is that both you and your wife went fully vegan on your wedding day of all days. So is that correct? And can you tell us a little bit about your decision to go fully vegan on your wedding day specifically?
Right. Well, Sivan, it's an honor to be with you, and The Vegan Woman is doing amazing things. So it's a real pleasure to be talking with you. Yeah, you would think on your wedding day you've taken on enough vows already, enough commitments for your life. But we thought we'd throw one more major one on there. And it was really our first time experimenting with veganism. Mm-hmm. Our wedding meal was our last dairy meal. And then from that point on, we took the plunge. And we felt this enormous amount of strength from being together that we could really strengthen each other to go to the next level in our own ethical and spiritual commitments. And our sense was that we wanted to build our home around our core values, around the Jewish principle of rachamim, of compassion, and ahava, of love, and of tzedek, of justice. And we felt that together we could do something which seemed really challenging, but in fact, in partnership and in community is very easy and very possible. We also felt that our love, while it should be an end in itself, it should also be a vehicle towards a broader transformation into our community and into the world. And we felt that our table in our house would be a holy table, one that honored the dignity of all sentient creatures. And so we've been married now for a little over 4 years, and we've never looked back. We initially said, this will be a 1-year experiment in case this is too intense, and we never looked back. It's been totally amazing. And I feel so blessed to have a partner, my wife, Shoshana, who gives me so much strength in helping prepare and buy food and think of interesting recipes. And I feel so inspired by her every day.
That's fantastic. Myself and my husband Scott, we've just went vegan before our wedding day 3 years ago, and we were able to do a vegan wedding. And it's such a great opportunity to be able to share your love and your ethics with the world, and especially on that day. So it was a pleasure hearing about your own experience. Thank you for that. And I have to ask then, obviously, I've mentioned before that you are the founder of Shamayim Va'aretz, which is a vegan Jewish institute. And I'm kind of wondering what made you found that specific organization? When did that happen? And what were the goals that you set for yourself and for the organization when you founded it?
Great. Yeah, once we became vegan, we started to look around and realize that there were billions of vegans that were Jewish. I mean, there's only, 13 or 15 million Jews in the world, but it felt like a billion Jewish vegans. And yet there was no strong organization that was leading the Jewish community or fueling the Jewish community to really take this to the next level, to organize it. And in particular, we found a lot of Israelis in America. I mean, Israel is the leading light globally for veganism, but Israelis in America were vegan disproportionate to the larger population. And so we realized it was time to create an institute. I also felt existentially lonely in that I didn't want to be the only one in my synagogues, in my communities, in my group of friends that had these commitments. And so we wanted to have gathering places. And so Shamayim Va'aretz means heaven and earth. The idea is to take our ideals, our sort of heavenly values, down to earth and implement them in a pragmatic way. And we do that with 3 pillars: through education, through leadership development, and through campaigns. Our educational work is everything from classes and institutes, and we create Haggadot for Pesach, for Passover. Our leadership development, we have campus fellows who lead on campus. We have a leadership retreat annually. And then our campaigns, we have numerous things, from trying to inspire and lead meat reductionism and inspire the journey to vegetarianism and to veganism, but also to reform the kosher industry where we see abuses, whether it's the practice of shackling and hoisting, holding animals upside down by the legs in torturous practices, whether it's kaparot, where before Yom Kippur, this coming week, before Yom Kippur, there was the torturing and killing of chickens in the name of religion, whether it's animal testing for cosmetics. And then we're trying to create new initiatives like ethical tefillin, the prayer ritual of putting tefillin on the head and arm, finding ethical alternatives. The opportunities are endless for across the spectrum of going all the way vegan in terms of one's food and products around leather, and in terms of engaging people on more gradual approaches towards just reducing suffering. And so we are a pluralistic organization that engages Reform, conservative, Orthodox, secular, Israeli, American, global, but also looking to partner with other faith communities and other organizations that are vegetarian and vegan. And so this has been incredibly uplifting to me. Please check us out at www.shemayimbaaretz.org.
Definitely, and I'm also going to refer our listeners to the full feature that we're doing about you and the organization, with all the links to the different projects that you lead. And I think it's incredible. Would people be able to join you on your journey? Could they contribute in some way to what you're doing with this organization?
Absolutely, many ways. We have a listserv with hundreds of people who share ideas on this email list. They share campaigns and recipes and articles and thoughts. We invite other Jewish vegans to join that. And also through our Facebook group, we have conversations where we post campaign work that people can get involved with. And we have an annual retreat, which often happens in beautiful locations like Santa Monica or San Diego or Manhattan, where we offer amazing vegan food. We offer leadership development and a beautiful community to get to know other people.
That's fantastic. That sounds amazing to me. So thank you so much for doing that. And I have to take this opportunity to ask you a few tough questions that I think a lot of us deal with, and I'm hoping that maybe you could help clarify how you deal with those questions. You know, a lot of people kind of face people who say that, or use religion. They use religion to justify eating animals. They use religion to justify all the, meat and dairy consumption. They say that God has put the animals on this earth for our use, and that justifies everything that we're doing to them. And I was kind of wondering, how do you, as a vegan rabbi, how do you deal with such claims and arguments?
Well, they're actually totally correct. You can use religion to justify all kinds of horrific activity, right? Religion is used today to justify genocides and jihads, women's oppression, all types of activity religion is used for to justify. And Judaism is also broad enough that it can be used to justify all kinds of oppressive activities. And so the question is not, does Judaism allow the eating of meat? The question is, does good and true Judaism allow for this justification? And the answer there is clearly no, because Judaism at its core strives for ethics and compassion and for justice. And today, knowing as much as we know, there is no claim that one could make that authentic Jewish values allow for the type of abuse we see today in the factory farming and beyond. And so I think that today in the 21st century, we see a universal mandate not only coming from Judaism, but from every religion and even from every system of ethics, that times have changed. It may be that times were different then, but today the level of abuse is unprecedented through factory farming. Today, the alternatives, the health alternatives that we have access to, that we can find in various food stores based upon a plant-based diet, are so numerous, right? Today, our knowledge that factory farming harms the environment more than even the automotive industry. We know so much today that Judaism and any religion can claim it's now a universal mandate. And so it's true that in the Torah, after the flood, after Noah's Ark is salvaged from the flood, that the rabbis teach that now the eating of meat is technically permitted, that we can now claim that there was another transition in modernity, where once again it is no longer permitted, not only according to the law, but also according to the ethics and the deeper mystical and spiritual dimensions of this holy tradition that teaches us that we should go forth as a light to try to inspire goodness, the tov v'yashar, what is good and just in the world.
Thank you so much for that, Rabbi Shmuly. I think that a lot of us gonna need to reflect on our values as well. And I think one of the things that Jewish people should be really proud of is the fact that in our tradition and in our culture, one of the biggest values is not to inflict animal suffering. You know, tsar ba'alei chaim, we call it in Hebrew, but it's the whole idea of not causing suffering and understanding the plight of animals. And again, I said I was going to ask you a few tough questions. So another tough question for you would be, considering that so many regulations are in place to prevent animal suffering, and that kosher rules are set to avoid, in a way, animal suffering. We can argue about how much that's really, helpful or not, but at the end of the day, that's what they're there for. And yet we see companies that systematically abuse animals, cause them so much suffering. And at the end of the day, they still repeatedly get the kosher stamp. So how would you explain this? The fact that they are still getting that kosher stamp, and also how would you suggest that we as a public, or even as, how would the Jewish community deal with this problem?
Right, yeah, a very, very important question. And it is absolutely true that this is not external to the core of Judaism. This is actually central, right? Some of the mitzvot, some of the commandments from the Torah are actually mentioned only once or twice. But animal welfare, animal rights are mentioned dozens of times. Everything from ever min hachai, that we can't take a limb from a living creature, to shiluach haken, that we must chase away a mother bird before approaching a baby bird, to the notion that an animal must rest on Shabbat, to the idea that we must separate milk and meat. We can't plow two animals at the same time. The prohibitions against hunting, the prohibitions against consuming blood. It goes on and on. It's as if the tradition for thousands of years is screaming out that we must cultivate the moral and spiritual consciousness to lead the progress that is needed globally. And so it is also totally true that today the Jewish community and establishments at large are failing to heed this mandate. If we look at the kosher industries in America, for example, it is completely intertwined with the other industries, the dairy industry, the meat industries, the egg industries, and the abuses are virtually identical, with the exception of a few details. And so we have lost that core commitment. We were trying so hard to catch up, to commercialize and industrialize the kosher establishments, that we got caught up in doing the same thing that was done left and right. And so I want to encourage all Jewish vegans to not abandon the kosher conversation, because they are needed to be a stimulus for change. If all those with a consciousness of animal sentience, leave the kosher conversation, then it is only to its great peril going to lead towards further destruction. If we stay inside the tent of that conversation and say, this is true kosher actually requires that we have the highest ethical mandate, and we demand that of this industry, then we inevitably will see change. And it's only recent that the kosher establishments have scaled up to this point that we see this level of abuse. And so I think that inevitably the kosher establishments again will become leading lights in trying to advocate veganism and the true ethos of veganism. But we have to, we have a long way to go between now and then. You know, just to give one example, we saw in Postville, Iowa, at the Rabushkin's factory, a company that was producing 60% of the kosher beef in America, 40% of the kosher chicken in America, that not only were they abusing their workers, was there over $10 million of bank fraud, were the immigrants being abused, but we saw some of the most heinous abuse of animals, and it was documented on video. And this was kosher America, and it became a true embarrassment that it was not a higher standard. And so we don't have to throw away kashrut in this process, but rather reclaim its true fundamental moral core.
Thank you. It's such an interesting debate, and I think it's really interesting to look at the ways that kosher conversations can exist next to and in correlation to veganism. So I think that's a whole area that a lot of us don't really explore. And it would be very interesting to see how we can take those ethics and those morals and implement them and truly understand that where they lead us is really to veganism at the end of the day. I think that's where the world is going. It will have to eventually anyway.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people out there who kind of accuse vegans of only caring about animals. They say, oh, if you're vegan, then you're really putting all of your efforts into helping animals rather than helping humans. And they say, if you are a vegan, then you don't love humans enough and you don't care about people enough. And it's kind of funny because whenever I would love to hear your thoughts of it, obviously, because, you know, as a core value of loving others and, you know, helping others is part of the Jewish culture. Whenever I hear people accusing vegans of not caring about animals these days, I automatically think about you. So the reason is, and our audience may not necessarily know this, but about 2 months ago, this past June, you actually went under surgery in order to donate one of your kidneys to somebody that was in need. And you did that while being vegan. You did it while running the Vegan Jewish Institute. And I thought that it was such a beautiful way of showing. I know you didn't do it to show people anything, but it was a beautiful way of showing how you can care about animals and you can care about people at the same time. The two things don't contradict. You can be an animal rights activist and a people lover as well. So could you maybe talk about that a little bit, and also how do you respond to such claims of people, you know, that are vegan that don't care about others?
Thank you. Yeah. I hear that claim all the time, and to be honest, my donating of my kidney, what came from the exact same place that my veganism comes from, which is this commitment that our lives are short and there's an enormous amount of suffering in the world. And our obligation in this world is to give as much as we can to reduce suffering around us. And the question for each of us is, how expansive is our own soul? For some people, they can only include their own people, their family, their neighbors, you know, their identity group. For others, they begin to include other peoples as well, and even beyond, to all creatures, to animals, and then more broadly to the world. How much can we spiritually expand ourselves? And my sense is that if we're on fire, if we are on fire with inspiration for love and justice, then it should emanate in all directions, towards people who are suffering, towards animals who are suffering. And this shouldn't just be a logical principle of hierarchies. right? I give to my family first, and then my neighbor first, and then to animals, and then to the earth. It's not, rather, if we have a moral and spiritual consciousness, it's my conviction that, that this has to inevitably pour out in all directions. Now, I do think it's true that there's a major problem that there are those who are only concerned with people and they're not concerned with animals. And so too, there are some people who are only concerned with animals and they're not concerned with people. And those are a problem if they do harm to the other population. That said, I do believe that each of us should find our greatest passion for service and pursue it with our most intensity. Right, and as long as we're doing that without creating harm to other populations, I think it's great. If some people today are on the front lines of protecting refugees, they should do that. If others are working to curb the carbon footprints and help the environment, if others are working towards peace, others are working to alleviate hunger, there are so many causes. And if others are working towards animal rights or welfare, why should they be critiqued that they're helping a population? I mean, who's critiquing those who are working on environmentalism or they're working to save refugees, that they're not doing enough over there? The whole claim is absurd, right? In fact, we should just ignore that aspect of cynicism and unfair critique and just get more strength from it to realize how much further we have to go towards spreading our message. And I believe in the end that the proper veganism for all of us is one that doesn't just remain there. It extends into a broader ethos where we become more compassionate in all of our relationships, more giving in all facets of our lives. And I myself have a long way to go in that. But I know that what veganism means is not that you check the box, I'm a vegan, check the box, but rather it's aspirational. It means that I'm committed to a life of compassion that extends into all vistas, all avenues of my life. And I can never perfectly achieve it. But together, if we build community, the way the vegan woman does, and the way that Shemayim Va'aretz strives to do, I believe that we can achieve the impossible together.
Those are truly inspirational words. Thank you so much for those. And I can so feel your passion about it. And it's great to see somebody who's as passionate as you are advocating and, really caring and really trying to promote this topic. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you're doing for the animals and for people as well. Thank you so much, Rabbi Shmuly.
Thank you so much, Sivan.
And thank you for taking the time for being with us today. And I hope our audience has enjoyed our conversation. I have a feeling they did. And I want to again refer everybody who is watching to our website, the Vegan Woman website, where we have the full feature with Rabbi Shmuly, where you could find the links to his website and to the different projects that they're currently doing. Thank you again for taking the time, Rabbi Shmuly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I wish you so much success in your holy work.
Thank you so very much. And again, if you are happy with listening to our interviews, don't forget to subscribe to the Vegan Woman YouTube channel. We're here all the time and we're bringing more and more new things your way. And thank you again, Rabbi Shmuly. Have a great day.
Thank you.